channel that I think often gets overlooked, and that is through the strip club, the modeling industry, and the pornography industry. In fact, I often casually kind of joke that I paid taxes to be a trafficking victim, something that I didn't realize until many years after I got out. I was recruited in high school, and they made sure that I could graduate, because the one thing that I really wanted is I wanted to make sure that I graduated, because that was something that the women in my family had not done, and that was really important to me, that I finish high school before I throw my life down the drain. So I would go to school, and then I would go to work. And I worked in a very, very popular strip club chain. They gave me a car to help me drive back and forth. They made sure if I didn't have a car, I had a ride. And they would work around my schedule so that I could go back to school and achieve what I needed to, all while carrying this secret around that nobody knew. Nobody questioned why the kid that came from poverty, who always smelled like cow manure because she grew up on a cattle farm, suddenly had giant wads of cash in her pocket, why I was coloring my hair, getting my nails professionally done, why suddenly I had a tan, nice clothes, things that I had never had in the 13 years that I was in that school system. The people who did observe my spiral thought I was problematic, and they were right, I was. By the age of 18, I had already been experimenting with cocaine, ecstasy. I had already been exploited. I had already been trafficked for the first time, and I still had not graduated and walked this stage. The day that I graduated high school, I went to the club that I worked at, and they held a giant graduation party for me. And as a mother myself now, I think back on all of the men that knew that I had worked there, that were sitting in that club so excited and yelling, "Finally legal," as we celebrated me graduating high school, like it was a huge event. Because I didn't even realize that these people were predators. I wasn't special. I wasn't more mature than other kids my age. I wasn't anything different than any other exploited child. But they knew how to talk to me and how to make me feel like I was. My trafficking was not being walked up and down the street. There was no gun put to my head. There was no anything. It was a repayment of the things that I had been given: security, food, shelter, money, success. Over time, the system demands that you pay back what has been invested into you. And the thing about the enemy, right, is that if you have a calling on your life, you're going to get a little bit of lie and a little bit of truth. Because if he just lies and lies and lies and he never fulfills the promises that he's made, then what do I have to stay here for? I have no reason to be bound to this. My manager at the strip club promised me I could have my own apartment within a couple weeks, and I did. They told me that I could have a vehicle, and I did. I would have success, and I could. That finally, for the first time in my life, since I hadn't owned my own body since I was 8, that if somebody wanted to touch me, I didn't have to let them. I could choose. I could be empowered. It was up to me. Until it wasn't, until I was asked to go to that bachelor party, until I was sent to a place where I would get date raped by the customer because he preferred women unconscious. And when I would be brought back to the club, there was no "let's call police, let's do this." It was simply lay her out on the couch, and we don't have to charge her base rent, because the club will still make the money off of my experience, even when it's sexual assault. I will still have to pay my 30 to 50%, depending on that cut. That happens every single day, and our society packages it as empowerment. Look we're liberating these women. We're freeing them from the chains of the patriarchy. Look at him up here on the pole. She's from another country. She's been given opportunity here, because that's a better way than saying mail order bride. There's a lot of women that are brought over here from other countries that are walked right out in the open in front of people. Their partners go to Slavic countries, purchase them for a price, bring them over here. The husband quits his job and he puts her on the pole for the next 6 years because that's the duration of her time there. And if she does not comply, she can be deported. She works 10 to 14-hour shifts in the club. And when she's not being abused at home by her husband, she might have to go home and make webcam material, even after she's already had a long day of abuse. That happens over and over and over again. It's right out in the open. Now we have websites that project pornography. You can make it right in your living room. You can get paid for it. We never ever talk about what happens when the person that's recording is the boyfriend, the abuser. He's taking all the money. We just keep pushing this narrative of empowerment, and it's sexy, and everything is in your own hands. Because that's easier than telling the truth. Pornography is ripe with trafficking. The pornography industry that you see on the surface supports the one that lies underneath, the child abuse, the exploitation. I cannot tell you how, even in the club, how many times I was asked to dress when I had really boy short hair, like a little boy. I didn't have any breast implants. I didn't have any of that stuff yet. People would bring in toddler-size underwear for me to wear as I was dancing. And in my head, I rationalized that. Well, at least if they do this to me, then they won't go out there and do it in public. Yeah, I know he works for the public school system, but at least he comes here instead. And I would put these chains and these guilts and these things around my neck that made me feel so bad about myself that I could not even work sober for nearly 2 decades. People often wonder how these people don't walk out the door. Like, yeah, sure, the door is open, but if I leave, I go out to what? I don't have an education. I don't know anything but this. I grew up here. I can't go out into public and tell people what's happening because back then we didn't have words like trafficking. The industry that I come from never called me a prostitute. I was an escort. I was classy. I was a ring girl. I was on camera. I was in magazines. I was anything but a prostitute. And something that we often don't realize about trafficking victims, we want to rush in and we want to rescue them and we want to get them out. They don't even know that's what's going on. It's so normalized to them. It took me 8 years after leaving before I started to speak out, before I realized the gravity of what had taken place. Now, make no mistake, there were times that I prostituted, but there were times that I was trafficked. And they're very different from each other. They carry different weight. They leave a different scar. So unlike my sisters who had to walk the streets and had a pimp that stood on a corner and watched them and collected, I paid to a corporation. Nobody ever told me that a multi-billion-dollar business could be a pimp. I was one of over 10,000 women that worked at that industry. And I was part of a group within my own system where we would rotate about 7 or 8 of us at all times. But we never used the word prostitute. I never used the word victim. I used things like, I'm giving advancement, opportunity. You know, they're investing in me. Well, I just got this magazine contract, so I mean, I guess the stuff on the back end isn't that bad. The transition into softcore pornography for me was as simple as the exchange of, we helped you get this far. You gonna take some pictures for my pay site? I never saw those things after they were done. I have no idea what half of the content out there of me even looks like. And the thing is that I was so good at disconnecting myself as a survivor of childhood abuse that I could unplug my own psyche from what was happening and say, this isn't as bad as it could be. Well, unlike the other girls I work with, nobody beat me to death in the parking lot. So I guess I'm doing really well. I mean, yeah, the abusive boyfriend that I had, I mean, he's okay. You know, he only like hits me. He doesn't stab me or shoot me like some of the other girls that I work with. My customers are all, you know, pretty big deals. They're really good people at their heart. I mean, sure, they bring in paddles and whips and ask me to do things that make me want to vomit on myself. But what do I expect? Look where I work. It's a lie that we tell ourselves. And when we want to speak to survivors and we want to help, we have to understand that a lot of the times they don't know. Nobody's walking up and saying, hey, are you being trafficked? And they're going, yes, yes, I am. No, they're going to say, no, what are you talking about? That's my boyfriend. That's my manager. That's my dad. They don't know the gravity of what's taking place. And I want to speak to you as a community because I know that we sit here in a church, right? And churches are places where we should have hard conversations. And one that we are continuously missing the mark on is the pornography industry. You cannot say, I am anti-trafficking and pro-porn. There's no such thing. No such thing. I cannot explain to you what it looks like when the light leaves somebody's eyes because they just came back from a week of filming in Los Angeles. I have watched women's soul get stripped down to nothing. They are shells of the people, but you're not going to hear that they're trafficking victims. You're going to hear she's a drug addict. Yeah. She's a criminal. She's a problem child. She's just a part of the system. She's never going to change. And as long as we keep speaking that death over them, how are they ever going to feel comfortable, feel welcomed in these spaces? There wasn't a community for survivors when I left. There still is not a community for survivors from the porn and strip club industry. There's not. That's the truth. We don't qualify for services in a lot of the ways that our sisters on the streets do. Because apparently ours isn't bad enough because I had an apartment and a car. Never mind the fact that I also had breast implants that they would regularly threaten to cut out of me if I didn't comply. But by the grace of God, I had them cut out of me anyways of my own accord 3 years ago. I don't want anything that the enemy gave me in my body ever again.
Amen.
For somebody like me, getting out didn't look like running and fleeing and having to change my name. It looked like a very public and humiliating crawl backwards to say everything that I sold you through magazines, through social media, all of that, it is a lie. I had to stand and be the face because just as public as my trafficking was, my redemption had to be as equally public. I could not stand there and say, well, no, it's still okay, girls. I want you to end up in the modeling industry. I want you to do everything that I did because it almost cost me everything. My children, my family. And when I left, I didn't get to keep anything. I didn't get to keep that fancy apartment. I didn't get to keep that car. I lost everything. You know why? Because you can't steal from Satan's storehouse and then bring it over to Christ. He doesn't want it. It's tainted goods.
Amen.
And I didn't want anything that he gave me because it was bought with a price, and that price was my salvation. I could not have my salvation if I didn't surrender everything. But that was humiliating, and it was public. And I don't care anymore because it has been the most freeing thing in my life to stand and say, I know what happened to me. I got to testify against Ron Jeremy and help keep one of the most prolific porn stars in the world in prison. I got what many people in my industry did not get. I will never see justice in the way that I deserve But I have seen what happens when God comes in and radically changes somebody from within.
Amen.
And what these people need, men and women and children, is they need services, they need understanding. They need you to not look at them like they're crazy when they're saying, hey, there might be some powerful people involved in this. Because yeah, it sounds wild, it sounds unbelievable. And I mean no disrespect when I say this, but catering to legislators and law enforcement and all that was just as much a part of my life as it was the random teacher on a Tuesday. These people are not crazy. They're coming from a world where they know, I can go here, I can be dark, I can be evil, because nobody's gonna believe her. They'll believe me. I'm the mayor, I'm the townsman, I'm the pastor. I want you guys to know that it is so important, not only as a community, but as a body of Christ, that we unite and take a stand against this, that we say, what can we do? What need needs to be met in our community? And how do we fulfill that? If it's time, if you're a therapist and you're like, you know what, I can throw a couple free sessions in. If you really have a ministry for food banks, you're not gonna get them to walk out the door with you from the club. Let's be real about that. And if you come in from the church and say, hi, I'm here from the church and I'm in the strip club, they're gonna go, why is that? I would have never, and I never did trust anybody, male or female, that came from the church and stepped into Satan's lair. Where's your discernment? Why are you here right now? But you know what? Just like Christ preached outside on the steps of the Roman temples while they were slaughtering goats in there, you can be right outside the door waiting for them, because they're gonna need resources. They're gonna need help. A lot of them, I didn't even know how to put a consumer's bill in my name, because my life was jotted out and charted out for me. That's what kept me in alignment. 20 years old, I don't know how to set my own water up. Mother of 2, I don't have a car that's technically in my name. There's a lot of mitigating factors, but they're not unmanageable. And whatever your gift is, if you find yourself passionate about helping, God will use your gifts to make a difference in their life. But you gotta be willing to pray, and you gotta be willing to start to have the conversation. And what you definitely can do in the meantime, since you might not encounter a trafficking victim, is you can speak out. And when people try to tell you, porn is empowering, OnlyFans isn't so bad, well, it's just in men's biology that they like to look. We can say, oh, is it in their biology to create victims of human trafficking because they're feeding the supply and demand? I don't think it is. They want to be protectors, right? Be a protector and speak out. That's what they need. I'm really, really grateful that I got the chance to come here. Honestly, it is so surreal, because some of the first exploration of drugs and the path that I went down started in Sterling Heights, because our aunt lived here and she did not care what I did as a teen. When we talk about statistics, I hit every single one. Negligent parent, abusive parent, sexually abusive parent. I am a walking statistic. I am fully aware. But as you go into the community, you see other youth that are walking statistics. Even if you can't stop what's coming down the road, I am asking you to start turning your mindset towards covering them in prayer and not speaking death over them.
Amen.
Because I know the adults in my life, the teacher that stood in front of my math class and said, you know what, Freeman, you would make a really great stripper. In my public school, my dad did not go to the school and fight for me when that happened. People spoke things over me. And when the presentation came, when the enemy approached, It was like, well, I've been training my whole life for this. You have an opportunity to speak life into this community, into that kid who can't seem to figure it out, the one who keeps stealing, the one who keeps using drugs, the one who's getting on your ever-loving last nerve. Speak life over them. That's what we need. The survivor community needs that. Our children need that. And I am just so grateful that you guys want to start having this conversation. And I don't really ever know how to end these, so thanks for giving me a microphone for 20 minutes.
Woo! Thank you. What? No, you're great. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. You know, God uses so many people. I'm so thankful that I was introduced to Lena and that she was willing to come and share a minuscule part of her story, right? Minuscule. And she is just doing so many amazing and mighty things. And, you know, it's unfortunate that she had to go through everything that she did. And I am just so grateful that she now understands that her purpose is to reach so many others that need to hear her story. And she's doing amazing and mighty things. So thank you again. So the Department of Homeland Security was supposed to be here this evening. Unfortunately, they're still in shutdown, and so they were not able to come. So I'm just going to show a quick video that they sent, and please listen to this video, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Recognizing human trafficking could help protect someone from harm. What is human trafficking? It's the exploitation of a person through force, fraud, or coercion. Human smuggling and human trafficking are different crimes. Human smuggling is the illegal movement of someone across a border. Human trafficking is the illegal exploitation of a person. Human trafficking is about exploitation, not transportation. Human trafficking is a highly profitable crime and a violation of human rights. It occurs in every part of the world, including here in the United States. It happens in our big cities, our suburbs, and even in rural towns. It can happen to anyone. Human trafficking victims can be U.S. citizens or from other countries. Victims can be any age, race, or sex, but one thing they share is that they are vulnerable to being exploited. There are different types of human trafficking, including sex trafficking and forced labor. Sex trafficking victims are manipulated or forced against their will to engage in sex acts for money. Sex traffickers might use violence, threats, manipulation, or the promise of love and affection to lure victims. Truck stops, hotel rooms, rest areas, street corners, clubs, private residences. These are just some of the places where victims are forced to sell sex. Any person under the age of 18 involved in a commercial sex act is considered a victim of human trafficking. No exceptions. Forced labor takes on many forms, both here in the US and overseas. Through force, fraud, or coercion, victims are made to work for little or no pay. Very often, these trafficking victims can be found in places such as factories, farms, and construction sites, manufacturing or growing the products we use and consume every day. They may also be forced to work in homes across the United States as nannies, maids, or domestic help. Their traffickers sometimes take their identification papers and travel documents in order to limit their freedom. Human trafficking is a daily reality. Every year in the United States, thousands of human trafficking cases are reported, but many more go unnoticed. Victims are often afraid to come forward, and the signs of human trafficking can be subtle and hard to recognize, even if they're right in front of us. It's important to know the indicators of human trafficking to help someone escape a dangerous situation. That's why the Blue Campaign was created, to take a stand against the exploitation of vulnerable individuals, raise awareness of human trafficking cases across the country, and to educate the public, law enforcement, and key partners about what to look out for. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. So, what can you do to help stop human trafficking? Visit the Blue Campaign website to learn more about the signs and indicators to look out for, and share this video on social media to help others learn how to recognize the signs too. Be an informed consumer. Learn the business practices behind the products you buy and the food you eat. And finally, recognize and report suspected human trafficking. You can submit an anonymous tip to federal law enforcement online or by phone. For victim support, call or text the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. Join the Blue Campaign to help us protect communities through education and action. One voice, one mission: end human trafficking.
Stop human trafficking. Many different forms of human trafficking, and we're learning about a few tonight. And you guys might be having some questions going through your mind. There was a card, an index card, that was just passed out, and we understand that this is a very emotional and sensitive topic. So if you would like to use that index card to write down questions, because after our keynote speaker, we're going to have a panel discussion, and so you're going to be able to ask questions that have been stirring in your mind. And please don't hesitate to ask. If we don't have the answer, we will find the answer, and we will get that to you. So thank you. So our next speaker, again, I just feel so blessed because this woman is beyond amazing, and she has done so many amazing things. She's a devoted servant leader, advocate, educator, and award-winning author of 3 books. Her latest release, A Predator Within, is a practical playbook designed to equip parents with tools to keep their children safe in today's digital world. She's a certified human trafficking specialist with a CHTI certificate, which is Combating Human Trafficking Investigator Certificate, and serves as a victim advocate with GHOST through the Genesee County Sheriff's Office. Angela currently serves as co-chair of the Genesee County Human Trafficking Task Force and treasurer of the Shiawassee County Human Trafficking Task Force. In 2024, she was appointed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer to the Child Trust Michigan Board, and in 2025 to the Children's Advocacy Centers of Michigan and the Michigan Anti-Trafficking Project's Human Trafficking Education in Schools Task Force. She has fostered over 200 children and is an adoptive parent of 11, including 5 survivors of human trafficking. Wow. Through both her personal and professional work, she brings deep compassion, lived experience, and a trauma-informed perspective to her advocacy. As a founder of Millstone Ministry, Angela travels throughout Michigan, equipping churches, schools, and communities to recognize exploitation, protect children, support survivors, and respond with both truth and action. Please welcome an amazing woman, Angela Rogers Dudley.
Good evening. So first, I want to thank you guys for being here, because showing up is what matters. We don't get people that show up at a lot of these events because nobody wants to talk about it. Well, I'm going to rip that Band-Aid right off and we're going for it. So it tells me that you guys are willing to learn because you guys want to engage in this conversation, and most people would rather avoid it. Most people would rather avoid it. But I'm going to say this right out of the gate. I might offend you, and I'm not sorry. I can't be. There is no way to talk about what Lena and I do without offense. We're talking about people selling children. Human trafficking is not a problem out there. It's not a problem out there. It's a problem right here in this room. It's a problem right here. You guys have seen it. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
It's in our communities, it's in our schools, it's in our churches, and most dangerously, it's in every device that your children holds. Every device has it. Trafficking doesn't start with abduction, like people think. The movie Taken by Liam Neeson, okay, it's a great movie. That's not it. That's not it. It starts with grooming, vulnerability, and access. I've been involved in nearly 200 trafficking cases and exploitation. Can anyone tell me how many of those were by strangers? 2. 2 were by strangers. So what does it look like? It looks like sudden changes in behavior. It looks like withdrawal. It looks like anxiety. It looks like aggression. It looks like shutdown. So basically, it looks like every teenage today. Correct?
Yes.
No offense, girls. No, ma'am. It looks like having things they can't explain. Expensive items. Like Lena said, handfuls of cash. Where would a child get that? Right? Where would a child get that? It looks like secrecy. It looks like hidden apps. Messages that disappear. It doesn't look like the old prostitution days of the Wild West, where they have this, it doesn't look like that. And guess what? Sometimes it doesn't look like anything at all. Sometimes it doesn't look like anything at all. It looks like your child, your child's friend, your aunt, your niece, your nephew, your son's friend. And I know that because I have 5 children that would walk in here and you'd high-five them and not even know. Because guess what? They don't have a barcode on their forehead that says that they're a trafficking survivor. They don't. I know you're sitting in a room right now where I know personally at least 3 or 4 survivors of human trafficking. Can anyone just like neon sign it? It's not there. Trafficking hides in things that we simply explain away. I'm going to say that again. Trafficking hides in things that we simply just explain away. We got to shift how we talk about this and how we think about it. If we don't, we remain part of the problem, not the solution. And I promise you, our survivors that are coming out have a big enough uphill climb. They don't need us adding to it. Human trafficking is not a one-time event. People think people just get human trafficked one time. Human trafficking is not a one-time event. There's often someone recruits, someone that builds the trust, then there's someone that exploits them, then there's the other people behind the scenes that profit. There's an acts, means, and purpose that is done under force, fraud, and coercion. And guess what? It's a process. It's a process. It just involves many people along the way. The end game is usually the same, but getting there is a process. It's not a one-time act. Which this means actually, though, by the time that we actually recognize this, it's been happening much longer than we even realized. Oftentimes years. Oftentimes years. I'm talking people can be turned out in tricks 15 to 20 times a day for years, and then sit at you in church on Sunday morning and you would never know. Tell me I'm wrong. It happens. When people hear human trafficking, they automatically think kidnapping. They think about the pulling the child out from underneath the bed or the adult from underneath the bed. Hey guys, that's Hollywood. That's not here. And I hate to tell you what Hollywood's done to human trafficking is not correct either. That's a whole nother soapbox I'm not getting on right now. What do we see most? Sex trafficking, obviously, is the exploitation of a person for sexual acts through force, fraud, and coercion. But the way you guys might see this, a teenage girl who thinks she has a boyfriend until he starts selling her to others, calling it love. That's not a relationship, that's exploitation, wearing the mask of affection. Oh, yeah, it is. Online exploitation and sextortion right now, it's heavy. It's heavy. We have children committing suicide over this. It's one of the main calls that I get. Lena does a lot of really good work with that. So online exploitation and sextortion, when someone is groomed, manipulated, and controlled through images, threats, or shame, oftentimes that's completely behind the scene. You don't even know what's happening until it's too late. Until it's too late. Hey, guess what? A young boy sends one picture, and within minutes is being threatened, send more or else I'm going to go to your family. It didn't start with a bad decision. It did not start with a bad decision. It started with manipulation of somebody that was vulnerable. Labor trafficking, forcing someone to work under threat, debt and control. It's here. It's here. Basically, a worker promised opportunity, then trapped working long hours. No pay, freedom to leave. That's not employment. That's control disguised as opportunity. Organ trafficking. How many people have heard of that? Hey, we're not doing too bad. Well done. Illegal removal and sale of organs targeting vulnerable individuals through coercion or deception. A desperate person agrees to help for money only to be exploited, harmed, or discarded. That's not a transaction. That's exploitation of desperation. How many of you guys would give your every last penny to save somebody that you loved that needed an organ? I know I would. Familial trafficking. This one's personal to me. My husband Mike and I have adopted 5 children out of our 11 from foster care that were human trafficked by their own biological parents. Yes, one of them was birthed age 3. I just wanted to jab that in there a little more. Yep, birthed age 3. Exploitation within families or trusted relationships, that's what we see more. That's what we see more. Boyfriend, girlfriend, grandpas, uncles, aunts, the familial. And then you have to understand they're told to keep it a secret by the very person that's doing it to them because they trusted them. We're talking some of these people get put out 15 to 20, 25 or more times a day. That's insanity. Hidden exploitation right now, it's big. Choices of promiscuity or bad decisions. Recently, we had heard somebody say that a girl that liked to get around was a victim of human trafficking. She was choosing to be promiscuous That's not human trafficking. Yet. Yet. A youth acting out sexually labeled as a problem, when in reality they are responding to something that was done to them. And I'm going to tackle this hard in a few minutes. That's not behavior to punish, that's trauma asking to be understood. We have kids that come into our care that most parents couldn't handle. You got to get through 6 months before you even begin to touch the problem. And then that's when the real work starts. People are like, well, after adoption, it's all hunky-dory. Then, no, that's when it really starts. That's when it really starts. And we have to be honest. We've got to be honest about this. Sometimes what we call prostitution is somebody being prostituted. There is a difference between prostitution and being prostituted. If I'm prostituting and I'm keeping my own money, although illegal, that's not trafficking. The second that I'm being prostituted and I'm giving you my money, that's human trafficking. Why don't we stop looking at these victims in the street like they're whores and sluts and start calling them what they are, victims? Because guess what? They probably don't like where they're at either. Sometimes what we call a runaway is actually a child that's being hunted. They're running from something. And guess what? We know when kids are AWOL, within 48 hours out there, they're being contacted by a trafficker or somebody that has immoral purposes for them. We're going to get into that a little bit later too. This one really confuses people. How many of you guys see panhandlers on the street as you're going? And how many of you guys, with your own implicit bias, and we're in a church, that bum, that druggie, how many of you? I know I've done it. What if we start thinking labor trafficking? Labor trafficked. They could be labor trafficking victims. Changes the way you think getting off the expressway ramps, doesn't it? Sometimes what we dismiss is exactly what we need to be paying attention to. Sometimes what we dismiss is exactly what we need to be paying attention to. And if we mislabel the problem, guess what? We miss the victim. If we mislabel the problem, we are missing the victim. Then we're not doing any good for anybody, because then we're re-victimizing the victim. Yeah, I know, that was deep. I heard Wes go, And once you begin to see it clearly, the next question becomes, who's at risk? Everybody. Everybody is at risk in one way, shape, or form. Vulnerability is what they prey upon. Everybody in this room has one point of vulnerability in their life. Everybody. That's what's preyed upon. We're seeing an upswing right now with elderly that have lost their spouse. A lot of people don't want to think about that, but that's the truth. Traffickers are not looking for bad people. They're not looking for bad people. They're looking for accessible people. And they access them through the vulnerability. Vulnerability can look like loneliness, family conflict. Who's got some? Right? Foster care instability, unmet emotional needs. That's not broad or nothing. Low supervision, heavy online access, and a desire to belong. That creates vulnerability that people find. And guess what? Everything's out there online now. It's easy to find. Those obituary notices, people stalk those, and they know exactly who to contact and when to start doing some exploitation with elderly people. Someone didn't think about that back there. They were like, oh. Let's talk about grooming. Grooming follows a pattern. Grooming follows a pattern. It starts with attention. You're special, I see you. The connection, then building the trust. The secrecy, don't tell anybody. Then it turns into the isolation and pulling them away from their safe people. Then it goes to desensitizing them so that then they can start testing those boundaries. Hey, I'm going to do this to you, but I'm only going to do it so I can see if you're going to tell somebody. And then once you don't tell, I got you. If you do tell, guess what? They got to try harder or they move on to the next person. Grooming of our kids right now, it's easy. It's easy. It's simple to groom our children nowadays because we are allowing our phones to babysit our children instead of parenting them. I said what I said.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to catch that one later. But guess what? By the time it becomes obvious, they're already in too deep.
That's right.
By the time it becomes obvious, they're already in too deep. I got to make this real, okay? There was a young person in our home, now our adopted child. Lane and her daughter have met her. On the outside, people saw behavior, attitude, defiance, shutdown, and disobedience. Guess what? She was every one of them things plus a couple more. What they did not see is what was already happening and what had happened to her. They didn't see the grooming that took place prior to us getting her. They didn't see the manipulation that she dealt with. They didn't see the exploitation that she endured because people didn't see that. She bounced around into 9 homes before we got her. 9 homes. Guess what? That's 9 extra griefs in her testimony of being moved. Because she was just labeled difficult or hard to handle. Oh, and by the way, at 9 years old, she was labeled sexually aggressive. Tell me how that happens, right? I'm talking, we had a 9-year-old who would grind on chairs to sexually gratify herself. She would climb into my husband's lap, not for affection. She'd be searching for something different. She was labeled sexually aggressive. Well, duh. Why wouldn't she be? It's all she knew. Well, she was trafficked by her biological father. She learned from birth that physical touch meant something very different than what we think. She learned that you had to give something for physical touch. If you know what I'm saying, and I know we're streaming, so I'm cushioning what I say. It took us years to get her to a healthy spot to where she was able to even hug my husband without expecting something in return. Years. This child now goes around the United States with me and speaks her testimony at 14 years old. But God. That's God. In our house, when you help a child, it helps, but when you help them and lead them to Christ, it heals. And that is how we do it. When you help a child, it helps, but when you help them by leading them to Christ, it heals. Hear this, though. Trauma shows up as behavior before it reveals itself as their story. It does, and it's ugly sometimes. My husband and I take the hardest of the hard kids, the ones that go to residential, get out of residential, the one that nobody else will take. It's hard, but until you let them speak their narrative, it's going to get a lot harder. Survival does not equal consent. Survival does not equal consent. Just because somebody survived it didn't mean they chose it. just because they're partaking, this is where people get mad at me, just because they're partaking in what's happening to them doesn't mean that they're consenting to it. It means they have no other alternative. What are they going to do? I'm going to come to your house and kill your family. Okay, I'll go do that play. How many of you would make the same choice? Survival does not equal consent, and I am sick and tired of our victims and our survivors getting re-victimized. I'm sick of it. I'm sick and tired of our survivors coming out for help and it taking 3 years and get re-victimized again over. So we're going to talk about the demand a little bit. Lena did a really good job with that. The only thing I'm going to add to what Lena said about pornography is if pornography is the main act, if trafficking is the main act, pornography is the dress rehearsal. If trafficking is the main act, pornography is that dress rehearsal. And if you're watching it, you're no better than a human trafficker. Because guess what? You're paying for it. You're paying for sex. And guess what also? Guess what traffickers use to train minors on what they're expected to do when they're out making plays? So next time any of y'all look at pornography, think about the child that's sitting there looking at that too, so that they know what to do when they're out making plays. Because that's how they train them. It's no wonder most of the kids that we get into foster care today are also addicted to pornography. I'm talking at 3 years old. 3 years old having a digital footprint that when you check it, has pornography. So where's this happening? Everywhere. It is happening everywhere. It's happening in hotels, it's happening in apartments, it's happening at truck stops, it's happening online, homes, agriculture. Hey, guess what? It's also happening in schools, churches, gaming systems, and social media. At this point, I think it'd be easier for us to say where it's not happening. Is that fact? It'd be easier for us to say where we haven't seen it. And I think those are pretty far and few between, too. Maybe. So here's where I get a little heated. Why don't they just leave? That makes my blood boil in a way that I might need secondary trauma therapy at this point from. Why don't they just leave? For what? The judgment? Why would they? Leave for what? The unknown? At least the life they're living, they know what to expect. They know they're going to be pimped out. They know that they're going to be making plays. They know they're going to have their butts kicked. They know there's going to be happenings of that in and out of them houses. They know that end of it. To come to us and then have to fight the uphill battle that's about to be. Hey, guess what? Getting these people out of trafficking's 3%. The other 97, 98% is what they have to do to stay alive once they're out. Why would they leave and then have to fight the system that unintentionally re-victimizes them? And I said unintentionally, trooper. I said unintentionally. And I know because I'm part of the system. Plus, then you add trauma bonding, Stockholm syndrome. It's not as easy as someone would think to just be like, peace out. You can't do that. There is no peace out. Because they'll find you again. Oh, and then guess what? You'll go to jail too. Because by the time that happens, you've partaken in so much stuff, they got stuff on you, so if they're going down, you're going down too. Our attorneys today, man, they fight for this, and they fight it. They try. They try. It's impossible. Our victims get the same treatment from the very people who are exploiting them. Then we have the audacity to be mad at them when they go back to the life. I'm talking 80% go back. And that's kind of reported. I'm sure it's much higher. 80% go back. How about we stop victim shaming, victim blaming, victim shunning, and give them a safe place to land? Sometimes 3 or 4 times. Sometimes 3 or 4 times. I have one girl we worked with, we pulled out 8 times. Guess what? She finally got it. Or better yet, how about we meet them at their well like Jesus did when he met the Samaritans at Jacob's well? We already know that the system is not set up to handle the long-term need for our victims. We're not. We are not. The system is already spread so thin. This is where advocates come in, but guess what? Even resources are thin there. Let's talk about the system. There's good and there's bad. We know this, but it's not because people don't want it to be better. I have yet to work with somebody that says, oh, nope, just let them go. They're taxed. They are taxed. There's another part that most people don't ever see. The human trafficking case is like a 1,000-piece puzzle to put together. The only difference is the puzzle's clear. How many of y'all tried to put together one of them clear puzzles? My kids thought it was cool. I threw it in the garbage. I rage bait puzzle putting together stuff. Every message, every timeline, every interaction, every detail, each one has to be found, verified, and aligned before you truly have a case. And it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. And here's the part people struggle to understand. Guess what? Victims don't make the strongest witnesses. They don't. Not because they're lying. Not because they're lying, but because trauma impacts memory. Fear impacts consistency. And manipulation runs deep. Many times they're put on trial as well. Many times they are put on trial themselves. Their choices, their behavior, their past, everything they've done gets questioned before the perpetrator. We had a case we worked. This woman, she fought hard, only to be called a whore because she had an abortion, a junkie, even though she was clean at that time. She fought, she had her kids taken away. Why don't they come forward? Why don't they leave? I don't know why. For what? Not saying we don't try. In another case that I personally worked, this is mine, with my 3. They moved in with us, and it took 3 years for that case to go to trial. I'm talking ages 5, 7, and 9. 3 years for that case to go to trial. So they sat in, we call it purgatory foster care, because it ain't their fault, for 3 years. Guess what? By that time, those kids are well on their way to healing. 3 years later, have to go sit this close to their perpetrator and testify against him. Guess what? It's his dad. Can you imagine? He did it, and he got 37 and a half to 100 years in prison. He did it. So what people don't see on the outside as why isn't more being done is often so much more complicated. It is so much more complicated. By the time the case even reaches a courtroom, we're talking years. We're talking years. 2 years, 3 years. Can you imagine fighting to heal for that long and then having to go sit and testify against that person that you've already done moved on from? Asked to sit across from the person who exploited you and tell your story again and again and again and again and again over. Yes. We're re-victimizing our victims by making them do that. We have stuff sitting in Senate that we're waiting on for that to help out. And here's the truth. If every piece matters, but trauma reshapes how those pieces are told, then justice requires more than evidence, it requires understanding. We've had cases come up where, strong cases, where I worked with this person, they were doing great. Get this close to them across, that Stockholm kicks in, recanted a story right there on the stand of a case that we've worked for 3 years. It's hard. The most dangerous thing, though, today, I'm swinging over to this, is not the street. The most dangerous thing that we have right now is not in the street. It's an unsupervised device with your kids. How many of you guys in this room right now would take your child and drop them off at Disneyland and walk away? Not one? Why not? Too many people there, right? That's what I hear every time. Too many people there. Hey, guess what? About 35,000 people visit Disney a day. Right about a day? But there's millions of people online at any given time, of which 500,000 of them are predators actively looking for your children. But we leave them alone there. What's the difference? At least at Disneyland, I can look in people's faces as they're walking by my kids. Handing your children one of these is like handing them a loaded weapon with no instruction. We wouldn't do that, but yet we do. Awareness isn't enough. So if you suspect something, say something. Stay calm. You have to stay calm. Because guess what? If you're amped up, that victim's amped up, and then guess what that victim's thinking? I'm the bad one here. If it's on a device, put it in airplane mode immediately. Airplane mode immediately. Because then cyber crimes can get a hold of it and download anything that they need. If it's not in airplane mode, two-way street deleting on a lot of those apps. Listen and believe, report it, get help immediately. I say delay devices. None of my kids have them. They don't get them until they drive. And not one of my minor kids have social media. Not one. And guess what? People ask me all the time, what do your kids do for fun? Send me to the emergency room because they're outside being kids. Jumping off the roofs and stupid stuff like that. So if you're drive by my house and see a kid skateboarding down the roof, just know. So delaying the device, if you can delay it, that's going to help. We're going to swing into something that's a little uncomfortable, and I'm all right with that. We're going to talk about what you guys do to teach your children that they're not allowed to say no to physical touch. Go give Grandpa a hug goodbye. Right? How many of you have done it? We got to be intentional with what we're teaching our kids. Because guess what? If we're not, someone else is. Someone else is. We unintentionally teach our children that they have to be compliant when given orders of physical touch. Why are we doing that? This is one of the biggest lessons to take from here today for your kids and your grandkids. Instead of asking or telling, go give Grandpa or Uncle Johnny a hug goodbye, would you like to? And guess what? No's no. No's no. If we don't take their no as a no, one day some of them boys that came after Lena, pulling her into the strip club, she ain't gonna think she can say no to that. Or worse. Or worse. If we don't teach them that their body is theirs, someone else is gonna take it. It's okay to say no. In the second that we're like, stop being rude. Don't be rude to Uncle Johnny. Go give Uncle Johnny a hug goodbye. We've just totally missed the mark. Totally missed that mark. If you teach your child to say no clearly at this age, you ain't gonna have to worry about it when they're this age. You know what we do instead? When we're out and someone comes up to hug my kids, my kids go, no doesn't have to be N-O. I'll take a fist bump instead, thank you. But then my kids also know if they re-engage again from that, that's when they're getting us. One day, somebody with bad intentions will take advantage of that. We don't need to teach our kids to comply with stuff that they're not okay with. And I ain't talking about making your bed. You too. Give them the language to do it, role play it. Guess what? It's not rude. Now, if they're F-bombing grandpa and this and that, okay, I don't recommend that. A simple no thank you does. And then we as parents, oh, okay, that's fine then. Come over here, Johnny. No's no. Protection is not fear. It's preparation and presence. Period. Predators look for isolation and they prey on that vulnerability. And guess what? One of the first things that they are asked when they go in for an interview is, did you tell them no? Am I wrong, Trooper? Did you say no? Teach them to say no young. People who feel seen, connected, and safe are harder to exploit. I want to take it one step deeper as I'm closing out, because I really need you guys to understand what's happening here, and you guys need to realize this is not just a social issue. It's a spiritual one. This is about brokenness, this is about darkness, and this is about vulnerable being targeted. And guess what? It's about voices being silenced. I'm going to be clear on this for a minute because this irks me. You're the voice for the voiceless. No, I'm not. They had a voice. No one listened. I'm not no voice for no voiceless. They had a voice, just nobody listened. I have yet to meet somebody that can't communicate. They have a voice. Nobody heard them. And as believers, we are not called to look away from that. We're called to step in it. Scripture actually says, defend the weak and the fatherless, uphold the cause of the poor and oppressed. Oh, there's more. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Hey, guess what? This isn't optional. This is gospel in action. And it's been around for, I don't even know how many years. Thousands. Because behind every situation is a person made in the image of God. Still worthy of dignity, of protection, and of being seen. My question to everyone in this room today, will you stay comfortable or are you going to be obedient? Are you going to stay comfortable or are you going to get obedient? Those are two separate things. I'm not going to be silent so you can be comfortable. Will you look away or will you stand in the gap? Because guess what? Exploitation depends on silence. So we don't step back, we're going to step in. We speak up, we show up. I know Lena and I show up multiple times a week, multiple places. She wears better shoes than me. If we don't start standing in the gap, we're not going to change anything. And it starts with legislator right now. And we're there. We're there. I do not want any of you guys to leave here just informed. I want you guys to leave here changed. You can watch YouTube videos to get informed. Hearing her speak better have changed you. Because if it didn't, we got way more work to do. In the next 24 hours, I'm going to task you guys, have one hard conversation about what you heard today. Start with one. You don't have to be like Dawn, me, and Lena having multiples a day of conversations. Start with one. Check the devices in your home. Hey, guess what? Have any of you guys tried taking a phone away from a teen? Right? Look through it. Save the hotline numbers. Share what you've learned. Because guess what? It might just be me coming and seeing you and talking to you and you being like, oh, I identify with that. Let me help you. Because then guess what? You then can help somebody else, just like Jesus went back for the one. If you're not going to do it, then who will? If not now, when? Awareness is the first step, but action's what save lives. When we go and do our street outreach, hey, and I learn too. I learn on the daily. I used to go into strip clubs and do outreach until very recently. Lena looked at me, she's like, girl, what are you doing? Don't do that. When we do outreach, we meet them at their well, not where our well is. We meet them at theirs. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It doesn't look like the people standing on the corner with stilettos or fishnet stockings. They look just like you and me. Literally, just like you and me. And now, you know. You can't leave here and say, I didn't know. Now you know. Are you going to be the problem or are you going to be the solution? Save the numbers for the hotline. Everybody, I have this and I will have it back at that table. You can take a picture of it. Save it. We have the Michigan Human Trafficking Hotline. Michigan actually has its own sexual assault report tip line now called, it's 855 Voices 4. You can be anonymous. Why would you want to be? You can be anonymous. Central intake. Guess what? People don't realize this. Centralized intake's not just for minors. Vulnerable adults are also called into centralized intake. Suspected abuse or neglect. Which one? Centralized intake? Oh, centralized intake. You can call centralized intake at 855-444-3911. 3911. And you can call for a vulnerable adult as well. It's not just for children. And then the other number for Michigan is the word voices, the number 4. Yes, ma'am. It's 855-444-3911. That is centralized intake. And then the other one is the 855 Voices 4. That is the Michigan, I call it the Michigan hotline. That might not be the right term. And then there's also the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which is in over 200 languages. You can text it, call it, chat with it for real-time help. For anybody interested, I do have a resource guide back there. I don't make copies of it because it costs a lot of money. But anybody can go back there and take pictures of it, and it will actually show you guys how to get through some of this stuff. I have some of your cases in there too. Because if you take pictures of it, and after you digest everything, you can go back and look it up. And then I also have a limited number of these here today. If anyone wants to purchase one, I can be back there. I think I got like 15 or 20 of them with me. These ones, they're 20, but I think we were doing them for 15 today. So, and I write books to support our ministry. That's how we fund our ministry. But if you're looking for the resources, go back to that book and take pictures of it. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll get a little heated.
No, you're awesome. All right. That was awesome. We are not done. If you guys have put any questions on the indents cards that were passed out, please pass them out to the edges so we can pick those up. We're going to have a few minutes to have a Q&A. So if Lena would like to join us up on stage, as well as Angela, please. And then we're also going to have Officer Hallett join. So we're going to have the ability to ask the questions. If you would like to ask a question and you don't want to write it down, just raise your hand and I can come over to you with a microphone in order to have you ask those questions. So, you know, this is a really important topic. We've basically ingested a lot of information. And here's the thing. We don't just want to make you educated and informed. We also want you to take action. So if you can actually, again, if you have any questions, raise your hand. We're starting now.
And I do see people lining up back there for books. I will go do that as soon as we're done.
Everybody, she will be able to get those books as soon as we're done with the panel discussion. We have a question.
Hi, my question is, I used to be heavily involved in modeling and stuff, so your story really resonates in that and seeing the exploitation, but I do have some friends and acquaintances that I see the lines getting blurred. Like the one girl is with a very older man, she's 25, he's in his 50s, she calls him daddy. He films content for her for Fansly, finding out she's prostituting herself in hotel rooms to get money, and she's stuck in this perpetual cycle. She talks about being a Christian and posting Bible verses, but I've been praying and praying for her and maybe kind of trying to send her videos, but what's the best way that maybe I could reach her? Because it's breaking my heart to see how she's being exploited in porn, prostitution, and other girls in that industry.
Thank you. Does she live with him?
No, but they're together all the time.
They're together all the time?
Yeah.
Okay. You're not going to like my answer, but you're not going to be able to get her to leave until God's ready for her to leave. There's a hard lesson that she's going to have to learn. Nobody, even the most well-intentioned people, couldn't pull me away because my needs were getting supplemented, right? Even my own family, my mother, my my friends, everybody knew, very much knew what was going on. But I was getting something out of it, because when you're exploring Christ, because I was like coming to Christianity while I was going through that, I still felt like, well, God wants me to be here. You know, he's not stopping me, right? He's still with me because I'm not dead. But I promise you, sometimes we have to pray people into the enemy's hands to kick them off their high horse. Okay? So instead of praying soft, like, I hope she gets it together, like, no, Lord, humble her now. Rip the rug out from underneath of her so she has no choice but to crawl to you, because the enemy has made it too convenient for her to stay where she is. Okay? I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer. Okay? Yeah.
I actually love that
No.
answer.
No,
It's like Jesus flipping tables.
right? Yeah.
No, that was awesome. Thank you. Does anybody else have questions? Raise your hand.
Is there a place where we can send people when they get out of the trafficking for help? Because a lot of times their families have turned on them.
So there's a lot of resources out there. We have safe houses, and we have facilities and agencies and things like that that are set up to help. The barrier is that there's usually a wait list to get into these places because they're so taxed. It's really, really, really hard to keep the resources. I promise you the need is there. There's just not enough. You know, we do have resources. There's Sanctum House, there's Hope in Lansing, there's YWCA, there's Sacred Beginnings. There are a lot of agencies out there to help. The barrier is getting a bed in one of them to help. And also understand that we rarely see just a human trafficking victim. It usually comes with another diagnosis called addiction. So then you have a dual diagnosis going on that you're also trying to get them help for their addiction on top of the human trafficking. And let me just poke the bear with this a little bit. There's not one inpatient rehabilitation center in Michigan for minors that are addicted to drugs and alcohol. Not one. They just get labeled difficult and get thrown in residential. So yeah, there are places. And if you need them, you can do 211 and ask, and they will also send you to some of the places for those. But, and I know you can go to my webpage, millstoneministrymichigan.com, and we do have things listed on there as well.
The Michigan Human Trafficking Commission is trying to build a resource guide for everybody to access law enforcement, state agencies, advocates, so that there should eventually be a single resource guide for the entire state. But we're not there yet. Do you?
No, I don't have much to add. I mean, like she said, for, addiction or trafficking victims, I think it just comes down to resources, right? I mean, I don't think the programs are out there. It's just getting in them is just not always the easiest. But things like this is what, more people talking about it. That's how we get more resources, so.
And keep in mind too that the resources aren't like a 30-day stay. It takes 5 to 7 years sometimes for somebody that has been human trafficked to be able to be in a safe space in their brain where they can function without that. It takes 6 months sometimes or more for them to even realize that they were a human trafficking victim to begin with, because they still love that person, minimum.
6 years. It took me 6 years.
Minimum. Yeah. Minimum 6 months for them to even realize that they were a victim of something that wasn't their fault. It's like it's a long time.
Okay, so my microphone's not on. Sorry. Can you turn my microphone on, please? So, yes, thank you. Are there any other questions in the audience? Oh, now we're getting a bunch of questions. And so let me just take one that was submitted in writing. This is for Elena. Were there any adults that tried to help you and then your industry was able to get you back?
Yes, actually. Wow, that's interesting. And because they got me back. Nobody's ever asked that before. That's incredible. Yeah, I actually had a boyfriend. At the time I was 18, and he was 24. He was a really, really nice person, and that was very foreign to me. And so I self-sabotaged because he wanted me to leave. He wanted me to go to college. He said, this is not how 18-year-olds live. This is strange. And I destroyed his vehicle and did things like I would just freak out on him because everybody in my life said, he's controlling you. He's trying to change you. That's abusive. And so I actually self-sabotaged that relationship because I thought that he was trying to control me, and we were able to reconnect many, many years later. And I got to apologize to him. I said, I did not see what you were seeing at the time. He was very concerned that I was going to die in that place. And I got to thank him for caring. I got to tell him, and now he gets to see that my life has totally changed. So it's a really, really cool feeling. But yeah, he did. My club was like, no, he's evil. He loves you. He's evil.
Nice. Well, thank you for sharing. Audience, is there any more questions?
I don't think I need the mic, but thank you.
Well, we're live streaming, so if you could take the microphone just so
okay,
people could
sure,
hear.
all right.
Thank you.
Many years ago, my wife and I brought in 3 foster children. They were fostered to us after they had been adopted by some other parents who were exploiting them. They came in very young. Well, at least one of them. The youngest one was 8 years old. All 3 were girls. Unfortunately, we worked very hard at getting them to change their view of life and what was important, what wasn't. It took them to church, etc. Unfortunately, all 3 of them ended up pregnant, unmarried, and one of them involved in several crimes. And it made me wonder, because I thought their adoptive parents did a gross injustice to them. One of them was, kept in a cage in the basement whenever she did anything wrong. So these kids were, I hate to say it, almost like ruined by the age of 12 or 13. Is there anything being done to screen foster and adoptive parents better?
For this one. Just go for it. Can you tell Lena and I are together a lot? So I'm not gonna lie, foster care and human trafficking, they're parallel. It's parallel. Not in ways that you might think, though. I'm not saying that situation's not terrible, because that is. They do a lot of screening. They set us up in all kinds of classes to do everything you can to help these children, but it's not what you get in your door. I just finished a book actually in editing called Trash Bags and Chaos, The Realities of Foster Care in America. It should be out in a few months. But one thing I can tell you is that we hear the statistics that foster care human traffics kids. That's not true. That's not really true. Now, there is a parallel existence to that, meaning that we know up to 50 kids a day go missing in foster care. We know that's truth. Kids go AWOL. So then they get reported to NEMAC and things like that, so they get attention, so it makes it look like foster care is human trafficking children. And I'm not saying there's not some bad homes, because there certainly are. There certainly are, just like anyone else. But I can tell you that our system tries really, really hard to do the right fit for the home of these kids that come in. Sadly, when they come into care, they just know a sliver of what's happened to these kids. So a lot of times foster parents are over their head with kids that they get in care because they didn't realize what was really underneath the surface. It's taken us 3 years to break open a human trafficking case on a kid. but we couldn't figure out why the kid was acting out the way he was. It's not a race, it's a marathon to get to the end of those kids. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. They do a lot of training, but I don't care the amount of training they give you. They do the best that they can. Nothing equips you for what our kids are going through today and what comes in our door. Nothing does.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a question here. It says, can you explain the hand signal done in public for trafficking? Does it work? And can you give an example of what it is?
Yeah, so we actually talked about this before we came in about signals and, but what I would say about this topic is things are always evolving and changing, every day in this world, fraud world. So to sit here and say there is a direct sign, I would not be telling you anything that, is gonna benefit that. I think I wanna take this back to what we talked about earlier, and I think it was 97% don't come back out, right? And I think that's being a good neighbor, looking for these signs, having this discussion with people. We're talking about devices, and I'm sitting on 2 of them right now because I actually have a detail I gotta go to right after this, but having that conversation, we all know people, you go to dinner, right? And everybody's staring at their phones because why? Because that's easy, right? Having that discussion with those people, look at those signs and how dangerous this can be. I actually did a super load escort yesterday, and I typed up the company that that was escorting these huge semis was called Big Ox Escort Service. And I pull it up on my Michigan computer, I type in Big Ox Escort Service just to kind of see what they're all about. And guess what popped up? Nothing to do with this escort service, right? It was all these escort services online, and that is just so minimal to what online can do to our children. I have 2 kids, 0 devices, because I see how quick, right? And when people say they can't be vulnerable, right, that would never happen to me. Anybody can be vulnerable, you just gotta get them at the right second, right? That's myself included, that's probably anybody in here. We've all gone through things that if the right person would have reached out to me and told me what I wanted to hear, whether that's trafficking, fraud, whatever that is, it can happen, right? So as far as a signals are always out there, right? It's paying attention and talking to that kid that, maybe your kid at school or grandkid said, yeah, this kid keeps running away, and he comes home at 10:30 at night. That's stuff we bring up and start paying attention to that. And then, like she said, having that hard conversation, right? I think 3% is the success rate of coming out. Very hard, right? So let's try getting it before it happens. That's where we need to start. So, yeah, I wouldn't say there's a specific sign. It's just they're out there every day. Yeah. Right.
It's like a social media trend to be like, do this. Like nobody, and I can tell you as somebody who has been in public spaces in a trafficking situation is like, hey, desk clerk, you see this? Like, you don't do that. You don't ever go against what's taking place in that moment. You don't even look to the left if they tell you to look straight, let alone are you flashing hand signals. That can get you killed, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one more question from the audience.
My question just was, if you had advocates for your 911 operators in situations of reporting human trafficking or any kind of abuse that you see, and if so, how do we find the resources for that?
Are you saying to the call center?
Like to the call center, or to, like, when somebody makes a report, do you have an advocate that just sticks with that said victim that you're calling about, or is that?
So I could speak on the 911 part of that question, obviously. So yes, we do. Okay, yeah, we do have a victim advocate that works within each post, actually. And she's awesome at her job. She's amazing. So yes, that is. As far as calling the hotline, I would assume the resources are probably endless, and there's a bunch of advocates. But we also got to remember, in this topic, law enforcement usually isn't the first contact for a human trafficking victim, right? Most people don't want to call somebody that looks like me. I can't even go into a store, or even probably here when some of you walked in, we're like, what's this guy doing here, right? He looks serious and he looks mean, right? I know, that's just the way it is. I was eating lunch with my parents 2 days ago. I met them for breakfast, and they're like, everybody, they came up and said something like, yeah, when you were walking in there, like, what's wrong? What's happening? You look so serious. It's like, I'm not serious, actually. This is just, once you put this on, everybody thinks I'm not a human being, or, you know what I mean? Like, we're usually not the first ones to go to, unfortunately, right? We're known as the ones that put them in jail, put victims in jail, which that's not, what? Bad. Well, I know, but I'm saying that's what the victims see us as, putting people in jail, not helping, right? Yeah, no, we're not putting victim in, yes. So I wasn't fully wrong, but yes. It is, that kind of starts the process for a lot of these, these victims, so. Yeah. But even that takes multiple.
I had a second part to my question because I was hoping that you might be able to answer that one. And my next one was, when we want to help somebody and they do not want to go to their local police station nor their county, if they live in a city or a township, is the state police posts accessible to everyone without having to go through the proper channels? Let's say, per se, somebody lives in a desolate area where I grew up, there's 2,000 people, and it's the good old boys club where the police station sides mostly with the perpetrators and the bad guys to make all the women or children look like they're the bad ones. Is the state police accessible in those times of making a report without going through the city or the township?
Yeah, 100%. Always accessible. And like I said, the victim advocate is also there, works out of each post. As far as I know, they're at each post, unless maybe there's a vacancy or something. But I speak on as a whole as, yes, there's victim advocates at each one. But kind of like going back to what I said, right? We're not known as the one to, or the people. But if you're a bystander, neighbor, friend, family member, by all means, get the process started, because you not doing anything is not the answer, right? So whether that's coming in the MSP post, calling one of the hotlines, that it all bleeds down to the same where it's supposed to go, right? However you get there, it might take a big different avenue, but as long as you're doing something and calling somebody, you're doing your part, is what I would say. Yeah, across Michigan, absolutely. Yeah, and our cyber crimes unit, she talked about the airplay. I could go on. I was a fraud detective for 5.5 years, so I kind of know all the ins and outs of all the cyber stuff too. So, but yeah, I mean, we have all the resources. Coming to the state police is definitely an open resource, absolutely. Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. And I want to keep track of the time, because I know that you guys took time out of your busy schedules to join us. So can we give a round of applause for the panelists? And I would also love to just say that Hope Against Trafficking is a wonderful organization out of Pontiac. They have safe houses and they provide a lot of resources. They helped sponsor us this evening, as well as Truth in Education, and they are doing a lot of legislative stuff in the state of Georgia. And so thank you. Again, it's not just about education and awareness, it's about taking action. And if we look at it from a faith perspective, it's like God reveals things to us, and when we have those things revealed to us, He speaks to us, right? He speaks to us. And here's the thing, you can listen and not do anything, or you can listen and obey. And that is key, because it's not just about listening, it's about actually listening and then doing. So we need to obey when God speaks to us. And yeah, so our website has a lot of resources as well. So if you go to libertyleadersunite.org, if you would like to ask any of these guys, there's resources, and it's so wonderful that there's so many organizations that are kind of working together to provide those resources. And so again, thank you so much for coming. And please, Angela, you can go, and she's going to be, get in and out. I got grandbaby. Yes, she has a grandbaby coming right now. And so if you would like to get one of her books, that helps provide funding for her ministry. And so thank you so much. God bless you guys. And please take action. And if you would like to volunteer, you can text our number. Oh, one more thing. We have one event coming up in June. It's called Beautifully Seen. It's going to be June 14th. And here's the thing. This is a wonderful event where we actually pamper survivors. And so we will have survivors that will be coming, they'll be pampered, they'll get their hair done, their makeup done. I actually just spoke to an esthetician, and they might be doing mini facials. But anyway, we would love to have you guys donate. And this flyer will soon be on our website. We just got the date, and we're going to be getting more details. So thank you again, and have a wonderful evening.